Hi fellas, and welcome to a new episode of Let's Pause to Listen. I put a lot of thought into how I'm going to tackle this video. Should it be a discussion about the degree of awesomeness of this soundtrack, or a general agreement that this magnum opus coming out of this video game is pure gold and just leave it at that? And then I knew how to handle this. I will simply try to explain why this soundtrack might be one of the best video game music ever made. What makes it so special, why is it so rich and dense, and what does Richard Wagner have to do with it?
Primarily nothing. He died in 1883. As we all know, the name of the genius who composed the entire soundtrack is Nobuo Uematsu. This grandmaster of melody can only be associated with great sound. What John Williams is for films, Uematsu is for games, and this is not an exaggeration. In Final Fantasy VI we can observe that this is actually true. He even does something with this music that took me a while to realize, and when I did, it blew me away. But we'll get to that. A big spoiler alert would be in order right now, because in this video I really need to talk freely about the story.
First, let's have a look on the game. If you are looking for the RPG on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, then this is it. Final Fantasy VI, or Final Fantasy III as it was introduced to our friends in North America, came out in 1994 and it still counts as one of the best games ever made. If you are one of the unlucky ones who have never played it, play it. It is so good, you cannot overrate this one. It has everything. Dynamic battle system, atmospheric colorful artwork, perfect soundtrack, and it has a lot of stories combined into one big saga that can be divided into two acts. First act being in the world of balance, and the second act being in the world of darkness after Kefka manages to destroy the world.
The War of the Magi that took place 1,000 years before the story begins brought the world almost to complete annihilation. Humans and Espers failed to live together, and that's why the latter hid themselves in another own world and sealed the door shut. With them, magical force also vanished from the face of the earth, which is very disappointing to some power-hungry people from the Empire. The world slowly recovered from the war and relearned technological knowledge so that the steam engines and other higher technology could be reinvented again. But in some eyes, this is not enough. The Empire desires more power than engines and gunpowder can create. They want destructive forces only magic can provide. Under the lead of Emperor Gestal, the search for infinite might commences, and the goal is to find the sealed door, of which only rumors and legends are left. Unaware of the dangers of these overwhelming powers they carelessly want to play with, they are about to bring the Earth back into total destruction once more. The game starts like an old horror movie with a long, slowly building up scary chord played by an organ, which gets supported and dissolved with the help of a choir. After you think that you might be playing Castlevania, the story begins with a music that is not just some intro music. It is also used as the start of one of the most beloved pieces of the whole soundtrack, Dancing Mad, which you can hear in the final battle against Kefka. This goes to show how well the music connects the entire game right from minute 1.
And how does Uematsu create such connectivity? He simply gives the player something they can remember without the possibility of confusing it with something else. Everything and everybody gets a musical theme. Places, characters, situations, you name it. And that's where this guy comes in. He made this way of applying music to scenery popular. It is called leitmotif.
It is a way of putting a musical mark on different parts of an opera, a movie, or in this case even a game. Its motive is to lead your emotions and thoughts as it is advertised with its name. The term leitmotif is actually German and translates as leading motive. It can put you in a certain mood, or it can remind you of a character even if he or she isn't in the scene. For instance, the theme of the character Shadow. You walk into a scene and you don't see him at first, but you can hear his music and you already know that he is somewhere close by. Leitmotifs can even be reminiscent of something completely different and still create a logical connection. Now listen to this track and you tell me that this doesn't remind you at least a little bit of Star Wars Imperial March from John Williams. In both cases you have the trumpets which are bringing the menacing melodies forward. Even the distinctive triplets in the rhythm part of the Imperial March get a little cameo appearance at the beginning of the Troops March On melody. Both stories have a bad empire and Uematsu makes that musically clear. And the beauty of such motifs is that you can modify and vary them as you need to apply them to scenes that require different speed or mood of the music. Like in this flashback of Terra where she starts to remember what the Empire did to her. In the here used track The Empire Gestal, you have the complete Empire melody slowed way down, primed with scary bells like in AC/DC's Hell's Bells, and some strings. As soon as you hear this leitmotif, you just know that the bad guys are up to no good. But one particular bad guy doesn't sound that bad at first. When you hear the theme of Kefka, you can't go like, uh-oh, there's the really bad dude. Some serious business is about to happen. It's not like with Final Fantasy VII Sephiroth, where you're scared shitless right from the start. You can't take this clumsy, embarrassing and lunatic Joker clown hybrid seriously. And neither does the music. It doesn't represent a fierce right hand of the evil emperor, but it is the perfect sound suit for the freak show that is Kefka. Uematsu could have made a terrifying theme for him, because he will eventually be the ultimate enemy, but instead he ridicules him to the bones for being such a nutcase.
Astonishing is the length of the game's soundtrack. We have to keep in mind that this is a game for the Super Nintendo, but still, if lined up in a playlist, it makes up a total of a little over 3 hours of playtime. For comparison, Final Fantasy VII's humongous soundtrack has 4.5 hours of playtime. Only titles like Chrono Trigger or Earthbound can compete lengthwise with 2.5 to 3 hours of soundtrack.
And this length makes sense if you realize for just how many things Uematsu composed music for. The overworld theme doesn't really exist. There are actually several overworld themes. First there is the theme of the World of Balance. Then the theme of the Dark World with its monotone organ pattern and the metallic cold sounding piano that gives you the chills. The Wild West with its percussion-based music that unfolds a gorgeous melody in an F-sharp harmonic minor scale, which gives a wonderful Middle Eastern ring to it. But I have to admit that even after so many years, I still couldn't figure out what the real purpose of this track is. There is no clear-cut sign why this area really needs its own theme. Then there is Chocobo when you rent and ride one. Blackjack as soon as you hop aboard Zetzer's airship. And the most beautiful of them all, Searching for Friends, as you are trying to find all the characters once again after Kefka manages to destroy the world. One thing I'd like to mention is what the game sometimes does to let a certain feeling really linger. Like in this scene, for example, King Edgar misspeaks and hints to Terra by accident that she might not be human. This triggers a slow and melancholic version of her theme called Awakening, which continues playing even after the scene is done, whilst riding the Chocobo and even entering a new place. This happens a few times in the game and it has a great impact on the person watching these scenes. It is not natural for somebody to digest a certain feeling fast and just move on. It takes some time and the gamer should feel that too. It is a neat little trick to play a bit with your feelings and provoke some empathy, which makes the immersion into the game way easier. I won't be able to talk about every track of the game, but some of them cannot be left out, and I picked out a few more that I consider as my favorite ones and which weren't already mentioned in this video. A staccato choir and a guitar, a flute and some strings. That's all Nobuo needs for the beauty that is the Phantom Forest. It appears in more locations than just the forest. Although it is mostly played in dangerous and dark places, this tune turns them into a delight. Right in the middle of the forest, Sabin, Cyan and probably also Shadow, if you took him along, find a train station funny enough and enter the coolest train ride in your gaming history. But it wouldn't be as cool without the track Phantom Train. With its 3/4 waltz time and its sloppy and a little dark melody, it is still a really funny tune. Before the protagonists get to the opera house, they have to enter the town of Jidor, or Jador, whatever it's called. Do you remember the house of the impresario in the far back with all the paintings? This house gets its own theme when you come back later in the game. It's a good thing that it does take some time to figure out the puzzle with the paintings, so you can listen to this joyful tune a while longer. It doesn't have any leitmotifs or any other connection with the rest of the game. It's simply another proof of Uematsu that for him, making great melodies is as easy as eating a piece of pie. Another great one is this silly sounding track Devil's Lap. What makes this music stand out is the rhythm part. The percussion that is used here mimics the factory that you are in so perfectly. It's like some machinery is working along as the music is playing. The beat gets you to nod your head and you almost forget the seriousness of this place. The melody is also more entertaining than terrifying. It's actually a pretty funny track with a great drive. I also adore this little piece that has no name. It is just the last part of the overture before the big aria of the opera scene. It is a tiny melody with soft staccato background, but it is so sweet and gorgeous I could listen to it for hours. You can hear it while Locke is backstage with Celes. In this scene it will last as long as you need to get ready, and it is quiet, so it would appear that it is played by the opera orchestra at the same time. Uematsu's quiver of melody seems to be bottomless. It is uncanny how all these themes are so indistinguishable from one another and how they all serve their scenes formidably. You have a scene, Uematsu has the music for it. Another World of Beasts also has this one melody no one else could have thought of. Simple arpeggios in the back, scary melody in the front, and this one really sucks you into the lore of these mysterious beings called Aspers. Okay, after we had a first look on the game, it is time to find out what Final Fantasy VI's music is really about. Join me in part 2 to look on some more awesome tracks and to find the true core of the soundtrack. Hope to see you guys over there.